there's a game that every person in this room, even those listening online, probably has played at least once, and probably many times. It's called It. Have you ever been in It?
Yeah.
Yes, of course you have. Everyone has played that game. It's a universal game that's played all over the world. I mean, children everywhere like to just chase each other and say, you're it, and then you go in circles chasing each other until the other person is it, right? So, what does it have to do with our Torah reading? You'll get to it. In our weekly reading, we encounter yet another list of description of the items. You heard them read. All these items that were made for the Mishkan. If you keep reading all of these things that happened in the wilderness, they're quite remarkable. However, the passage that lists all these items begins, I noticed, in a very peculiar way. Or at least it seemed to me as a peculiar way. So in Exodus 28:22 is I want to direct you to that particular beginning of our parsha. We read, Ele Pekudei HaMishkan. These are the records or the accounts of the tabernacle. Mishkan HaEdut, the tabernacle of testimony. Very interesting wording here. And then Torah repeats kind of like what this is about. And then it says, Asher Pukad al Pi Moshe, which were recorded or listed according to Moses, or literally from Moses' mouth, from his lips. So then the Torah explains further that this is the work, or this is the worship of the Levites under the direction of Itamar, the son of Aaron the priest. And then it goes into this list and recounting of all the things that were made and how they were made exactly according to the instructions that were given. And then later in the end, Moshe blesses all of that which was made. So, what is so peculiar about this opening, you may ask? Well, first of all, I encountered a very interesting verb, personally. I'm sorry, I'm a grammarian. I look at these things. You know, the verb pakad here comes up. And it comes up twice in this verse. So to me, that's remarkable. The meaning of the verb does not translate very well into English. There are some words in Hebrew that translate well. There are some words that just will not translate because there's really not an equivalent. And so, what does it mean? Well, it means something like an accounting, or something like a report, or a record, or some sort of an auditing of something. And so you kind of get this idea that this type of action is going on here. So the question, of course, in my mind is this whole entire chapter is just a tally? You know, is that it? Well, another meaning of the verb pakad has to do with appointing, or visiting, or inspecting. Auditing in this empirical type observation way, where you're encountering something and you have this visitation, you have this sense of presence with that with which you're inspecting. And if you probably don't know this, but in the biblical Hebrew, word Pekudei is a noun that means visitation, or it can mean oversight, like somebody who's looking things over. And Pakid, it literally means an overseer, or an observer, or a manager of some sort, somebody who's in charge of the whole process. So, also, the tabernacle here in these verses is called, in a very interesting terminology, is called Mishkan HaEdut, which literally means the tabernacle, or this place of testimony, or a witness. You know, Edut is a very interesting word. Something. What is a testimony? What is this witness? It's something that was established. It's something that is a precept, something that could even be translated as law of some sort. And it's a very unusual title. I mean, there's many times throughout Torah that Mishkan is called Mishkan HaEdut, but I find it to be very interesting because it kind of gets very quickly smoothed out in English, and so people say, you know, this is the tabernacle of testimony. It doesn't really mean anything to a lot of people, so I think it's an interesting description. What it is the description of the Mishkan, the tabernacle. The tabernacle is the entire system. It's the system that includes objects, it includes people, it includes rituals, it includes actions, and all these sort of say peculiar words that include in the Mishkan lead me to a thought. And for me, this was kind of a new thought, perhaps. A witness or a testimony, the bearing of facts for something, is connected to the idea of our empirical accounting for something. a reporting, an audit of some sort. It's a story that one can see and experience for himself or herself. So all the items that we read about, and these lists, they can get boring, they can get mundane because it's the same thing repeating over and over. All these items, the altar, the water basin, Aaron's clothes, the jewels, the gold, all the people, the sacrifices, the rituals, they were all to take place inside the tabernacle. All these are visible depictions, representations of something that is actually invisible, but it's no less real. Just because it is invisible, it doesn't mean it's not real. They are the way they are, and all these instructions that were given, because they are earthly representations of the kind of relationship, of the type of relationship that Hashem has established with Israel. They are just so, because Hashem is very particular about how he expresses these things. And the relationship that Hashem has with Israel transcends all these items. Everything that's in the Mishkan, sacrifices, items, rituals, the relationship transcends all that because it is a living picture of God's presence in the world. Essentially, that's what I'm coming to as I'm reading these words. And that is why every detail matters. That's why we're reading this list after list after list, and all the details that you think, couldn't just we read that once and get the same idea? No, it just keeps being repeated. So what can we learn from all this here and now? I have a couple of principles, a couple of lessons that I wanted to share with you today. First is this: live your life as a witness to God. Live your life as a witness to God. Basically, I'm saying you are it. So make your moves count. If you play in this game, let every little detail in your life be a visible witness of Hashem. Be odd, be strange, but be true to who you are. You are it, so be it. I will guess that many of you might say right now to me, Rabbi, I'm already doing this. To which, of course, I will say, do it better. Do it with kavanah. Do it with an acute awareness that you live, and the life you live actually has a meaning, has a purpose. You're not just going through the motions. If you do, you know what's going to happen? The ordinary will reflect the extraordinary. The things that you find mundane and simple, they will reflect something that is beautiful and extraordinary and heavenly. The visible things you do will represent the invisible, just as it was with Mishkan, with the tabernacle. So we don't have Mishkan today. We lost that beauty. We don't have that today. We lost that witness. It's called witness. We lost that witness a long time ago. And therefore, the way we live, the objects we use, the rituals we follow, the clothes we wear, the Judaism we practice, they are now visible reflections of Hashem's relationship with us. Just as Mishkan was long ago, how we live today is that visible demonstration. A lot of times Jews call their home Mikdash Miat. I don't know if you've heard that term before. It literally means a little sanctuary. And there's a reason why. Because how we live is a testimony of what God has done for us. We make our homes almost like a mini temple. Why? Because we want to honor Hashem in our lives with the only way we know how, with the instructions that He actually gave us, so we emulate that. Our table looks like that. The things that we do, the rituals that we say, the blessings we pronounce, everything we do becomes a visual representation of that relationship. We eat strange food on Passover, we recline, because Hashem has liberated us from Egypt. We build shabby shacks and shake exotic-looking branches because for 40 years we wandered in the wilderness and lived in shabby shacks. So guess what? If that's how we're going to represent what has happened to us, our relationship, then that's what we're going to do. We limit ourselves in so many ways on Shabbat, and yet we call that day menucha. We call it rest in God's presence. Our lives are meant to be as unusual as a traveling temple tent in the middle of nowhere, because you're it. So that's my first point. My second one is this: maintain God's testimony. Don't just live as a witness to God. Maintain that standing. The world around us changes all the time. It changes rapidly. New ideas come at the speed of light, and the old ones quickly forgotten. Humans are fascinating creatures. For one reason is because we adapt and change so quickly, as quickly as the weather sometimes. But Hashem, He gave us truths that have endured for thousands of years. And these truths, honestly, they have transformed the world. I can't even tell you how in the world, with 0.2% of the world's population, somehow will affect the faith of 3/4 of this planet. I mean, I'm wondering sometimes how these things happen. We have to hold on to these testimonies and stand firm on God's revelation and allow them to work through us, age after age after age. We have to maintain it. So yes, you're it. We're a nation of priests, a portable temple of God, who is high and lifted up. And at the same time, He's so near we can sense His presence. Not many people have that. It does not matter if you're a Jew or a non-Jew. Does that matter? Because if you entered into God's presence, even once, you carry that with you for the rest of your life, and you share that testimony. So, you are it.